For centuries, believers have spoken about a time unlike any other, a time when the world will stand on the edge of its greatest spiritual trial. Wars will spread across nations, justice will become rare, truth will feel buried beneath layers of deception. And in that darkness, ancient prophecies warn that humanity will face the most dangerous test in its entire history. According to Islamic tradition, the final chapters of human history will not begin quietly. They will unfold during an era when corruption spreads widely across the earth. Leaders will betray their people. Wealth will concentrate in the hands of a few, while millions struggle to survive. Violence, injustice, and moral confusion will dominate societies. In such an environment, people will begin searching desperately for guidance. But these events were never meant to be a surprise. More than 14 centuries ago, the Prophet Muhammad warned his followers that the end of time would be preceded by extraordinary trials. Among these trials, two figures stand at the center of the prophecy: the appearance of Al-Mahdi, a righteous leader who will guide the believers, and the rise of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the greatest deceiver humanity will ever face. The arrival of these two figures represents more than a historical event. It represents the ultimate confrontation between truth and falsehood. The Mahdi is described in prophetic narrations as a leader who will appear during a period of extreme injustice. The world at that time will feel unstable and chaotic. People will witness oppression spreading across nations, and many will lose hope that justice can never return. In the middle of that despair, a man will emerge whose character reflects humility, faith, and integrity. But unlike ordinary rulers who seek power, the Mahdi will not initially desire leadership. Tradition describes him as a reluctant figure, someone who does not rise through political ambition or military conquest. Instead, his leadership will be recognized by those around him because of his righteousness and the circumstances unfolding around him. While many people search for worldly solutions to global problems, the Mahdi will represent something different. His mission will not simply be political reform or military victory. It will be spiritual restoration, reviving faith among people who have forgotten it. However, even as hope begins to return through his leadership, a darker force will soon rise. The prophecies warn of an individual whose influence will spread across the earth with astonishing speed. This figure will claim powers that appear supernatural. He will perform acts that convince millions that he possesses authority beyond ordinary human ability. Entire populations will be deceived by what they believe are miracles. This figure is known as the Dajjal. Unlike the Mahdi, who represents guidance and humility, the Dajjal represents manipulation and illusion. He will use deception as his primary weapon. His goal will not be simple conquest of territory, but control of belief, convincing people that falsehood is truth and that truth is falsehood. The danger of the Dajjal will not come only from his power. It will come from the weakness of those who are spiritually unprepared. Many people will follow him not because they are forced, but because they are convinced. This is why the prophecies emphasize preparation. Believers are repeatedly warned that the trials of the end times will test faith more severely than any previous generation has experienced. Wealth, comfort, fear, and confusion will all become tools that can pull people away from truth. The arrival of the Mahdi and the rise of the Dajjal therefore represent two opposing forces shaping the final era of human history. One calls people back to faith and justice. The other attempts to replace truth with illusion. But before either figure fully emerges, the world itself must change. The prophetic traditions describe a period of growing instability, conflicts spreading across nations, economic hardship affecting societies, and moral boundaries becoming increasingly blurred. During this time, many people will feel lost, unsure where guidance can be found. It is within that atmosphere of uncertainty that the first signs of the final age will begin to appear. Because before the Mahdi rises to restore justice, the world will first descend into a level of turmoil that humanity has never witnessed before. As the world sinks deeper into injustice and confusion, the prophecies describe a moment when humanity will begin searching desperately for a leader who can restore fairness and stability. Governments will struggle to control crises. Conflicts will intensify across regions. Ordinary people will feel abandoned by those in power. In this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, the figure known as Al-Mahdi will begin to emerge. Unlike rulers who rise through ambition or political strategy, the Mahdi is described in Islamic traditions as a man of humility and strong faith. His name, according to many narrations, will resemble the name of the Prophet Muhammad, and he will come from the Prophet's family lineage. His character will reflect honesty, modesty, and a deep commitment to justice. What makes the story of the Mahdi remarkable is that he does not begin as someone seeking leadership. The traditions describe him as reluctant to accept such responsibility. He will live as an ordinary individual among people, witnessing the same turmoil and suffering affecting the rest of society. The chaos of the era will weigh heavily on communities, and people will begin searching for someone who can guide them. At first, many will not recognize him, but gradually, certain individuals will begin to see in him the qualities of leadership that the world desperately needs. His sincerity, fairness, and devotion to faith will distinguish him from the corrupt rulers of the time. While others pursue wealth and authority, the Mahdi will remain focused on restoring moral balance. The moment that marks the beginning of his leadership is described as occurring in the sacred city of Mecca. According to narrations, people will gather there during a time of intense crisis, seeking guidance and stability. Among them, a group of believers will recognize the signs that point to the Mahdi. They will pledge allegiance to him near the Kaaba, asking him to lead the community. Even then, he is said to hesitate. Accepting leadership during such a dangerous time means facing enormous challenges. The world will not suddenly become peaceful. Powerful forces will oppose him. Tyrants who benefit from corruption will see his rise as a threat to their control. Yet eventually, he will accept the responsibility placed upon him. Once leadership begins, change will start to unfold. The Mahdi's mission will center on restoring justice and fairness in societies where oppression has become normal. Wealth will be distributed more fairly. Leaders who exploit people will be challenged. Communities divided by fear will begin to find unity again. For many believers, this period will feel like a long-awaited renewal of faith. But this transformation will not happen without resistance. Those who profit from corruption will attempt to stop him. Political powers will fear the growing support he receives from ordinary people. In some traditions, armies will even attempt to move against him to prevent the spread of his influence. Yet despite these threats, the Mahdi's reputation will continue to grow. People across regions will hear about a leader who refuses luxury, who governs with fairness, and who prioritizes justice over personal gain. For many, he will represent hope in a time when hope had nearly disappeared. Still, the prophecies make one thing clear. The rise of the Mahdi is not the end of the trials. In fact, it marks the beginning of an even greater challenge, because while the Mahdi works to restore justice among people, another figure will soon emerge whose mission is the complete opposite. This individual will not call people toward truth, but will attempt to control them through illusion and deception. And when that moment arrives, the world will face the greatest spiritual test in human history, the appearance of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal. As justice begins to return under the leadership of Al-Mahdi, the prophecies warn that humanity will soon face its most terrifying trial. It will not begin with armies or political revolutions. Instead, it will begin with the appearance of a single individual whose influence will spread across the earth with frightening speed. That individual is known as Al-Masih ad-Dajjal. In Islamic tradition, the Dajjal is described as the greatest deceiver humanity will ever encounter. The Prophet Muhammad repeatedly warned his followers about this figure, emphasizing that no trial since the creation of humanity would be more dangerous. The reason for this warning lies in the nature of the deception the Dajjal will bring. Unlike tyrants who rule through fear alone, the Dajjal will use illusion, persuasion, and manipulation to attract followers. Many people will not follow him because they are forced. They will follow him because they are convinced. The traditions describe distinctive characteristics that will make him recognizable to those who understand the warnings. One of the most commonly mentioned descriptions is that he will have a physical defect in one eye. Yet his real power will not lie in appearance, but in influence. He will travel rapidly across regions, spreading his message and gathering supporters. Cities and communities will witness extraordinary displays that appear to be miracles. According to narrations, he will perform acts that confuse and astonish people. He will claim powers that seem impossible for ordinary humans. These displays will cause many to believe that he possesses divine authority. Some traditions describe how he will manipulate natural elements, making it appear as though he controls rain, food, and resources. In times of famine or hardship, people will see him provide relief where others could not. Entire populations suffering from poverty or fear may view him as a savior. This is how deception will take hold. The Dajjal will not simply conquer land, he will conquer belief. His message will challenge the foundations of faith, encouraging people to abandon the truth they once held. Those who lack knowledge or spiritual strength may find themselves drawn to his promises of power and security. Yet the deception will not fool everyone. Among believers, the warnings passed down from the Prophet will serve as protection. Many will remember the signs that were taught centuries earlier. They will recognize that the miracles they see are not divine, but tests meant to expose weakness in faith. Even so, resisting the influence of the Dajjal will not be easy. The world during this time will already be unstable. Economic struggles, wars, and fear will have weakened societies. In such conditions, people often look for quick solutions and powerful leaders. The Dajjal will present himself exactly as that solution. His followers will grow in number as he moves from region to region. Some traditions describe that only a few places will remain protected from his entry, including the sacred cities of Mecca and Medina. These cities are believed to be guarded during this time, preventing the Dajjal from spreading his influence there. But across the rest of the world, confusion will spread rapidly. Families will be divided between belief and disbelief. Communities will fracture as people argue over whether the events they witness are miracles or deception. Those who remain firm in faith may face persecution or pressure from those who follow the Dajjal. For believers standing with the Mahdi, the challenge will grow increasingly intense. They will understand that they are not merely facing a political enemy, but a spiritual trial designed to shake the foundations of faith itself. And as the influence of the Dajjal spreads, one truth will become clear. The world will soon be forced to choose between two paths, one guided by truth and faith, and the other shaped by illusion and deception. When that moment arrives, the confrontation between these two forces will become inevitable. As the influence of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal spreads across regions, the world will enter a period of unprecedented fear and confusion. Entire societies will struggle to understand the events unfolding before them. Some people will believe that the Dajjal possesses divine power, while others will remember the warnings passed down by the Prophet Muhammad and recognize the deception for what it truly is. This divide will mark the beginning of one of the greatest confrontations in human history. On one side will stand those who follow truth and remain loyal to faith under the leadership of Al-Mahdi. On the other side will be those who have fallen under the influence of the Dajjal, convinced by his displays of power and promises of security. The conflict between these two forces will not simply be a traditional war between armies. It will be a struggle for belief itself. As the Dajjal travels through lands spreading his message, his followers will grow rapidly. Many people will join him out of fear, believing that opposing him would mean losing access to food, wealth, or safety. Others will follow him because they truly believe the miracles they witness are signs of divine authority. In contrast, those who remain loyal to the truth will face increasing pressure. Communities of believers will begin to gather together, seeking protection and guidance. The Mahdi's leadership will become crucial during this period. His role will not only involve organizing resistance, but also strengthening the faith of those who stand beside him. Yet even under strong leadership, the situation will remain extremely difficult. Traditions describe that believers will face severe hardship. Economic restrictions, fear, and political instability will test their patience and determination. The followers of the Dajjal may attempt to isolate those who refuse to join them, hoping to weaken their resolve. Despite these challenges, the believers will continue to hold on to their faith. Their confidence will come not from military strength, but from the knowledge that these events were foretold long ago. The Mahdi will encourage unity among believers and remind them that the struggle they face is part of a greater divine test. In a world where deception appears powerful and truth appears fragile, maintaining faith will become the greatest act of courage. Meanwhile, the Dajjal's control will expand across large regions. His ability to influence people will create an atmosphere where many begin to question their own beliefs. Rumors and propaganda will spread quickly, making it difficult for people to distinguish truth from illusion. Fear will dominate conversations. Families may disagree over whether to resist or submit. Some people will abandon their faith simply to survive. For those standing against the Dajjal, every day will feel uncertain. Yet even as the situation grows darker, the traditions describe that hope will remain alive among believers. They will remember that the rise of deception is temporary and that a greater turning point is approaching. Because according to the prophecies, the confrontation between the Mahdi and the forces of deception will not be resolved by human strength alone. At the moment when despair appears strongest, when many believe that the deception has become unstoppable, an extraordinary event will take place. A figure long honored in religious tradition will return to earth, bringing an end to the greatest deception humanity has ever faced. That moment will mark the beginning of the final turning point in the struggle between truth and falsehood. As the influence of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal spreads across much of the world, the believers who remain loyal to the truth will face their most difficult moment. Fear will dominate societies. Many cities will fall under the control of those who support the Dajjal. His displays of power will continue to convince millions that he possesses authority beyond ordinary human ability. For the followers of Al-Mahdi, the situation will appear almost impossible. Communities of believers will gather together, seeking protection and guidance. The Mahdi will continue to lead them, reminding them that the events unfolding were foretold long before they occurred. Yet even with this knowledge, the pressure of the moment will weigh heavily on them. The world around them will seem overwhelmed by deception. It is during this moment, when hope appears weakest, that the prophecies describe a dramatic turning point. According to Islamic tradition, a figure deeply respected in both Islam and earlier Abrahamic faiths will return to earth, Isa ibn Maryam. His return is described as a divine intervention that will end the greatest deception humanity has ever faced. The traditions describe that Isa will descend near the region of Damascus, joining the believers who have gathered under the leadership of the Mahdi. When the believers witness his arrival, it will restore their confidence and strengthen their determination. Unlike the Dajjal, who relies on deception and illusion, Isa's presence will represent truth and clarity. His return will confirm the warnings and prophecies that believers had trusted for generations. The confrontation with the Dajjal will soon follow. Realizing that his deception is beginning to collapse, the Dajjal will attempt to flee. But according to the traditions, his power will fail when faced with the presence of Isa. The deception that once captivated millions will suddenly lose its strength. The Dajjal will eventually be defeated, bringing an end to the greatest trial humanity has experienced. With the fall of the Dajjal, the period of chaos and deception will finally come to an end. Justice and peace will begin to return under the leadership of Isa and the continued guidance of the Mahdi. The world that once struggled under fear and confusion will begin to experience stability once again. During this period, traditions describe that fairness and compassion will spread among societies. Conflicts that once divided communities will fade. People will witness a time when justice becomes common and oppression becomes rare. But beyond the political changes, the deeper message of these events lies in the lesson they leave behind. The story of the Mahdi and the Dajjal is not only about the future, it is also about the constant struggle between truth and falsehood that exists in every generation. The prophecies remind believers that faith must remain strong even when the world appears uncertain. The trials of the end times are described as the ultimate test of belief, a moment when humanity must decide whether to follow truth or be deceived by illusion. For those who remain firm in their faith, the outcome of that test is clear. Because in the end, deception may rise for a time, but truth will always return to overcome it. Throughout history, humanity has faced countless conflicts, powerful empires, and moments of uncertainty. Yet the prophecies about Al-Mahdi and Al-Masih ad-Dajjal describe a period unlike anything that has ever occurred before. They speak about a time when the world itself will become a testing ground for faith, patience, and truth. These prophecies were not revealed simply to predict the future. They were given as warnings and guidance so that people could prepare themselves spiritually long before such events arrive. More than 14 centuries ago, the Prophet Muhammad repeatedly warned his followers about the trials of the final era. He emphasized that the deception of the Dajjal would be so powerful that even strong believers would need knowledge, awareness, and sincere faith to remain protected. This is why generations of scholars and teachers continued to remind people about these warnings. The story begins with a world overwhelmed by injustice. Corruption spreads, leaders fail their responsibilities, and many people lose hope that fairness can ever return. In that environment, the rise of the Mahdi becomes a symbol of renewal. His leadership represents the possibility that justice and righteousness can still be restored even when society appears broken. Yet the return of justice is immediately challenged by the emergence of the Dajjal, whose power lies not only in influence, but in deception. His ability to convince people through illusions and false promises becomes the greatest spiritual trial humanity has ever faced. This conflict between truth and deception ultimately reaches its climax with the return of Isa ibn Maryam, who descends to restore clarity and defeat the deception that had spread across the world. The defeat of the Dajjal marks the end of the greatest trial described in Islamic tradition. It reminds believers that even when falsehood appears powerful and unstoppable, its victory is only temporary. But the deeper lesson of these prophecies extends beyond the events themselves. They teach that deception can appear convincing, especially in times of fear and hardship. When societies become unstable, people often search for quick solutions and powerful leaders who promise immediate answers. The story of the Dajjal warns that not every powerful figure brings truth. At the same time, the story of the Mahdi reminds believers that true leadership is rooted in humility, justice, and faith, rather than ambition or domination. The prophecies therefore encourage believers to strengthen their faith, increase their knowledge, and remain aware of the challenges that may arise in the future. They emphasize that spiritual preparation is more important than curiosity about exact dates or timelines. No generation can know precisely when these events will occur. What matters most is that believers remain prepared in their character, their knowledge, and their connection with faith, because in the end, the greatest battle of the final age will not simply be fought between armies or nations. It will be fought within the hearts and minds of people deciding what to believe. And the ultimate message of the prophecy is simple yet powerful. Falsehood may rise, deception may spread, and the world may appear lost in darkness for a time, but truth will always return to overcome it.